Dr. Amanda Blake floated through the observation deck of Research Station Omega-7, her coffee cup held carefully in zero gravity as she watched the massive gas giant below slowly rotate on its axis. The swirling storms of purple and gold never failed to amaze her, even after 3 years stationed here in the Kepler 442 system. She had come here as part of the joint scientific mission between Earth and the Galactic Cooperative, one of only 3 humans aboard a station that housed researchers from 12 different alien species. The morning shift was just beginning, and Amanda could hear the soft chittering of the arachnid science team as they prepared their equipment in the next lab. Captain Zithara led that team, a spider-like being whose 8 legs moved with incredible precision as she worked. Despite her intimidating appearance, Zithara had become one of Amanda's closest friends on the station. The captain had a dry sense of humor that translated well across species barriers. Amanda pushed off from the observation window and glided toward the communications center where Ryan Carter was already at his post. Ryan had been monitoring deep space signals for the past 2 years, part of the ongoing project to map radio emissions from the outer rim of known space. He looked up as she approached, his sandy hair floating slightly in the low gravity. "Morning, Amanda," Ryan said with a smile. "Sleep well in the rotation pods?" "As well as anyone can sleep when the artificial gravity cycles every 6 hours," Amanda replied, settling into the chair next to his workstation. "Anything interesting from the night shift?" Ryan shrugged and gestured at his displays, the usual background noise. Some pulsar emissions from the Vega sector, a few commercial transmissions from the inner worlds, nothing unusual. He paused and frowned at one of his screens. "Actually, there was something strange about an hour ago. Let me pull it up." Amanda watched as Ryan's fingers danced across the holographic controls. The main display showed a 3-dimensional map of local space with various signals marked as colored dots. Most were the familiar patterns of known phenomena, but one signal blinked red at the edge of the display. "This came in from Sector 7 Alpha," Ryan explained, pointing at the red dot. "It's definitely artificial, but the encoding is unlike anything in our databases. The signal strength suggests it came from very far away, probably beyond the outer rim." Amanda leaned forward, studying the waveform patterns on Ryan's secondary display. She had studied xenolinguistics as part of her training, and something about the signal structure made her nervous. "Have you tried running it through the standard decryption protocols?" "That's what I've been working on," Ryan said. "The basic structure suggests it's some kind of distress call, but there's an urgency pattern embedded in the transmission that I've never seen before. It's like whoever sent this was screaming for help." Before Amanda could respond, the laboratory doors hissed open and Kevin Murphy floated in. The security chief looked tired, which was unusual for the normally alert former Marine. Kevin had been assigned to Omega-7 as much for his combat experience as his technical skills, though Amanda had never understood why a peaceful research station would need someone with his background. "Morning, folks," Kevin said, grabbing a handhold. Near their workstation, "Ryan, I've been getting reports from some of the alien crew members about unusual transmissions. They seem pretty spooked about something." Ryan nodded and gestured at his display. "This signal has been giving me trouble." "All morning? Want to take a look?" Kevin studied the readouts with professional interest. Unlike most security personnel, he had extensive training in communications and electronic warfare. After a few minutes, he looked up with concern. "This encoding pattern is designed for maximum transmission through hostile environments. Whoever sent this expected it to be jammed or interfered with. Can you decode it?" Amanda asked. Kevin cracked his knuckles and moved to a secondary workstation. "Maybe. Give me a few minutes to run this through some military decryption algorithms." While Kevin worked, Amanda noticed that the normal chatter from the alien crew members had died down to nervous whispers. Through the laboratory's transparent walls, she could see Zethara and her team huddled around their own displays, their movements quick and agitated. "Got it," Kevin announced suddenly. "The signal is definitely a distress call, but it's not asking for rescue. It's a warning." He transferred the decoded message to the main display, and Amanda felt her blood run cold as she read the simple Text that appeared. Emergency broadcast to all cooperative worlds. The Devourers have returned. Repeat, the Devourers have returned. They have consumed the Outer Reach colonies. They are moving toward the Inner Rim. Coordinates follow. May the ancestors forgive us all. The coordinates that followed pointed to a star system on the very edge of known space, in a region that most maps marked as unexplored. Amanda stared at the message, trying to process what she was reading. What are Devourers? Before either Ryan or Kevin could answer, the laboratory doors burst open and Captain Zethara skittered in, her 8 legs moving in clear distress. Behind her came Dr. Vexhai, a tall crystalline being from the Silicate Collective, and Commander Torg, a bear-like Orsinian from the heavy world of Gravitas Prime. You have decoded the transmission, Zethara said, her voice carrying harmonics, that Amanda had learned to recognize as fear. This is very bad indeed. Captain, what are these Devourers? Amanda asked, standing up from her chair. Zethara's compound eyes seemed to dim as she spoke. They are the reason our species learned to hide among the stars. 3,000 years ago, they nearly destroyed all civilization in this galaxy. They are not truly alive as we understand life. They are consumers. They strip entire worlds down to bare rock, absorbing every organic molecule, every trace of metal, every drop of water. Dr. Vexhai's crystalline form shimmered as he added, his own knowledge. My people's historical records speak of the Great Consumption. 47 worlds in our sector were reduced to lifeless asteroids. The Devourers move in massive fleets, their ships growing larger as they consume more material. Commander Torg, whose species was known for their courage in battle, visibly shuddered. The old stories say they do not kill quickly. They harvest slowly, keeping populations alive to maintain fresh organic matter for as long as possible. Amanda looked around at the assembled aliens, all species that had mastered interstellar travel and survived for millions of years. The fear in their voices was unmistakable. What did your people do the last time they appeared? We ran, Zethara said simply. We evacuated everything we could and hid in the deepest parts of space until they moved on. It took nearly 2 centuries for them to consume what they wanted and disappear again into the void. And now they're back, Kevin said grimly, studying the decoded coordinates. The signal came from the outer reach. If they're moving inward, they'll hit the colonial worlds within months. Ryan was already working at his station, sending urgent communications toward the inner worlds. I'm transmitting this to the Cooperative Council on Centralis. They need to know immediately. Amanda watched as panic began to spread through the station. Alien crew members who had worked together peacefully for years were now gathering in. Nervous clusters, speaking in hushed tones about evacuation procedures and emergency protocols. She had never seen beings who had mastered space travel and energy manipulation look so helpless. There has to be something we can do besides run, Amanda said. Some way to fight back or stop them. The assembled aliens looked at her with what she was beginning to recognize as pity. Zethara placed one of her delicate limbs on Amanda's shoulder. Young human, you do not understand. The Devourers are not a problem to be solved. They are a force of nature like a supernova or a black hole. One does not fight such things. One survives them. As the implications of the message sank in, Amanda realized that humanity was about to face its first true test as a member of galactic civilization. The question was whether they would follow the example of their alien friends and run, or whether they would choose a different path entirely. The news of the Devourer signal spread through cooperative space faster than any previous emergency alert. Within hours, every major world had received the decoded message, and within days, the great council chambers of Centralis buzzed with frightened activity. The capital world of the Galactic Cooperative had not seen such urgent gatherings since the formation of the Alliance itself 2,000 years ago. Ambassador Lisa Garcia stood at the viewing platform of the human embassy, watching as ships from 47 different species arrived in the orbital zones around Centralis. Each vessel carried representatives who would decide the fate of trillions of beings across hundreds of worlds. Lisa had been Earth's representative to the cooperative for 5 years, and she had never seen such obvious fear among the galactic community. The emergency session began at dawn on Centralis Prime. The great assembly hall could hold 10,000 beings, but today it felt crowded with barely 3,000 representatives. Many species had sent only skeleton delegations, already beginning the evacuation procedures that their ancestors had used 3 millennia ago. Chancellor Morden of the Hegemony called the session to order with his deep, resonant voice. The Chancellor was a titan, a species that stood 3 meters tall and lived for over 1,000 years. Even he looked shaken as he addressed the assembly. Fellow beings of the cooperative, we face the return of an ancient terror. The devourers have awakened from their long sleep and begun their harvest once again. We must decide quickly how to respond to this threat. The first speaker was Fleet Admiral Corax of the Hegemony military forces. The admiral was a reptilian whose species had survived the last devourer incursion by hiding in underground cities on their homeworld. His scaled skin had gone pale as he reviewed the intelligence reports. The outer rim colonies of Kepler 186 and Gliese 667 have gone completely silent, Admiral Corax reported. Our long-range sensors show nothing but debris fields where 3 inhabited worlds once existed. The devourers consumed everything down to the planetary cores. A wave of horrified chittering and gasping sounds filled the chamber. Even species that had never experienced the devourers directly knew the stories passed down through generations. They were the nightmare that haunted every peaceful civilization in the galaxy. Ambassador Thexara of the Arachnid Collective spoke. Next, her multiple limbs gesturing frantically as she outlined evacuation plans. My people have prepared the deep space refuges our ancestors built after the last incursion. We can shelter 2 billion beings in the asteroid belt sanctuaries. But it will take months to complete the evacuation. One by one, species representatives stood to announce their retreat strategies. The Venthri proposed building massive defensive barriers around their core worlds using automated defense platforms. The Kithara suggested hiding entire colonies in subspace pockets where the devourers could not detect them. The Silicate Collective offered to share their crystal caves in lifeless asteroids, where organic beings could wait out the crisis. Lisa Garcia listened to hours of defensive plans and evacuation procedures. Every species that had survived the previous devourer attack had done so by running, hiding, or avoiding contact entirely. Not one representative suggested fighting back or attempting to stop the threat at its source. Finally, Chancellor Morden called upon the human representative. Ambassador Garcia, Earth is the newest member of our cooperative. We understand that your people have limited experience with galactic threats, but we would welcome any thoughts you might offer. Lisa stood slowly, feeling the eyes of thousands of beings upon her. She had spent the previous day in urgent communication with Earth, receiving instructions that had shocked even her experienced diplomatic mind. She looked around the chamber at species that had mastered faster-than-light travel, energy manipulation, and technologies beyond human understanding. All of them were preparing to run. Thank you, Chancellor, Lisa began, her voice carrying clearly. Through the Assembly's translation systems, Earth has indeed reviewed the situation carefully. We have studied your historical records of the devourers, analyzed the current threat assessment, and consulted with our military and scientific advisors. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the usual background hum of translation devices seemed to quiet as every being waited to hear what the youngest species would contribute to the discussion. The Terran Federation appreciates the offer to participate in evacuation procedures, Lisa continued. However, we must respectfully decline. Earth will not be evacuating. We will not be hiding in asteroid caves or subspace pockets. We will not be building defensive barriers and hoping for the best. Confused murmurs began to spread through the assembly. Several representatives exchanged glances that clearly indicated they thought the humans had misunderstood the severity of the threat. Ambassador Veltar of the Ethereal Collective, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline shell, spoke up from the gallery. Ambassador Garcia, perhaps you do not fully comprehend the nature of this threat. The Devourers are not a conventional military force that can be negotiated with or defeated through normal means. They are a consuming plague that strips all life from whatever they encounter. Lisa nodded politely at the interruption. With respect? Ambassador Veltar, we understand the threat perfectly. We have reviewed detailed records of their capabilities, their tactics, and their historical pattern of behavior. Earth's response is based on complete information, not ignorance. Fleet Admiral Corex leaned forward in his seat. Then surely you realize that direct confrontation with the Devourers is suicide. Every species that has attempted to fight them has been consumed completely. That brings me to Earth's formal response, Lisa said, activating a holographic display that showed the current Devourer incursion zone. The Terran Federation will be deploying military assets to engage and destroy the Devourer fleet before it can penetrate further into cooperative space. The chamber erupted in shocked exclamations and horrified protests. Chancellor Morden repeatedly called for order as representatives shouted questions and warnings in dozens of languages. Lisa waited patiently for the chaos to subside, her expression remaining calm despite the uproar her announcement had caused. When order was finally restored, Dr. Kaish of the Scientific Consortium spoke with barely contained disbelief. Ambassador, your species has been part of galactic civilization for barely 50 years. You have no experience with threats of this magnitude. The Devourers have been the terror of spacefaring civilizations for millions of years. Dr. Kaish raises an excellent point, Lisa replied. Humanity is indeed new to galactic civilization. We lack the wisdom that comes from millions of years of peaceful development. We have not learned the proper way to respond to existential threats. She paused and looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives. But perhaps that is exactly what this situation requires. You see, Earth did not become a peaceful garden world through millions of years of cooperation and gentle evolution. Our planet has tried to kill us repeatedly throughout our history. Ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, massive pandemics, and countless other extinction events have shaped our species. The holographic display changed to show images of Earth's violent geological history and the creatures that had evolved in its harsh environment. We did not survive by hiding or running away. We survived by adapting, by fighting back, and by refusing to accept defeat even when facing impossible odds. Ambassador Yelaneth of the Peaceful Assembly stood up, her feathered form trembling with emotion. But Ambassador Garcia, the Devourers are not natural disasters. They are intelligent beings with technology far beyond anything we have ever encountered. They cannot be reasoned with or deterred. You are absolutely correct, Lisa agreed. They cannot be reasoned with. That is why Earth intends to destroy them completely. The silence that followed her statement was deafening. In the thousands of years of cooperative history, no species had ever proposed the complete destruction of another intelligent race. The concept was so foreign to the peaceful galactic community that many representatives struggled to comprehend what they had heard. Finally, Chancellor Morden found his voice. Ambassador Garcia, the cooperative cannot sanction genocide even against a threat like the Devourers. Lisa's expression remained calm. Chancellor, with respect, the cooperative does not need to sanction anything. Earth is not requesting permission or assistance. We are informing you of our intentions as a courtesy to our allies. She looked around the chamber one final time. The Terran Federation will deal with this threat using our own methods and resources. We suggest that other species proceed with their evacuation plans while we handle the situation. As Lisa Garcia left the assembly hall, the shocked silence behind her gradually gave way to urgent whispered conversations. For the first time in galactic history, someone had chosen to hunt. The hunters. The secure communication room beneath the human embassy on Centralis had never seen such urgent activity. Ambassador Lisa Garcia sat at the quantum communication console, her face illuminated by the soft blue glow of the transmission device as she waited for the connection to Earth to stabilize. The 48-hour deadline given by the Cooperative Council was already half over, as she needed final confirmation of Earth's response. The holographic image of President Martin Cross materialized. Above the console, his weathered face showing the strain of the past day's emergency sessions. Behind him, Lisa could see the familiar backdrop of the Global Defense Council chamber in Geneva, where humanity's most experienced military and civilian leaders had been debating their response to the galactic crisis. "Lisa, I've just finished reviewing your report on the council session," President Cross said without preamble. "These alien species really think hiding is the answer?" "Mr. President, you have to understand their perspective," Lisa replied. "Every species in the cooperative has survived for millions of years by avoiding conflicts they couldn't win. The Devourers are seen as a natural disaster like a hurricane or earthquake. You don't fight natural disasters, you evacuate and wait for them to pass." General Patricia Wells moved into view beside the president, her uniform crisp despite the late hour in Geneva. "Ambassador, I've been reviewing the historical data on these Devourers. Their tactics are actually quite predictable. They consume everything in a system methodically, then move to the next target. They don't adapt or change strategy because they've never needed to. What's our current military readiness?" Lisa asked. The president gestured off-screen and another figure joined the conversation. Admiral Frank Morrison, head of the Terran Space Navy, looked tired but determined. "We've been mobilizing since we received your first report. Every available warship is being recalled to Earth orbit. We're also converting civilian vessels and activating the reserve fleets." Lisa frowned at the mention of civilian conversions. "Admiral, the cooperative species will see that as confirmation that we're not taking this seriously. They think we don't understand the scale of the threat." "Let them think that," General Wells interjected. "Better that they underestimate our capabilities until we're ready to move." Dr. Alex Turner, Earth's leading xenobiologist, appeared on the screen with a tablet full of data. "Ambassador, I've been studying the biological samples we obtained from the outer rim before those colonies went dark. The Devourers are essentially a spaceborne organism that has evolved to strip mine entire ecosystems. But there's something interesting about their cellular structure." "Go on," Lisa said, leaning forward. "They've never encountered serious resistance." Dr. Turner explained. "Their biology is optimized for consumption and growth, not for defense against targeted attacks. They have redundant systems for surviving in space and processing organic matter, but their immune responses are relatively weak," General Wells nodded grimly. "In other words, they're apex predators who have never had to worry about being hunted themselves." President Cross looked directly at the camera. "Lisa, I need you to understand something. What we're about to do will change everything. Not just for humanity, but for every species in this galaxy. Are you prepared for that responsibility?" Lisa took a deep breath. "Mr. President, I've spent 5 years working with these species. They're good people, but they've forgotten how to fight for their survival. If we don't act, the Devourers will eventually consume everything anyway. At least this way, someone is willing to try." "Then you have your final orders," President Cross said. "Return to the Council tomorrow and deliver our response. Earth stands ready to face this threat." The transmission ended, leaving Lisa alone in the secure room. She stared at the blank console for several minutes, knowing that tomorrow's announcement would mark the point of no return for humanity's place in galactic civilization. The next morning, the Cooperative Council reconvened in emergency session. The same representatives who had listened in shock to Lisa's previous announcement now waited nervously to hear Earth's final decision. Many had spent the night in urgent communication with their homeworlds, finalizing evacuation plans and emergency protocols. Chancellor Morden called the session to order with visible reluctance. "Ambassador Garcia, the Council has granted your requested time for consultation with your government. We are prepared to hear Earth's final response to the Devourer crisis." Lisa stood at the speaker's podium, looking out at thousands of beings who represented the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. She could see fear in their alien features, resignation in their postures, and a desperate hope that humanity would come to its senses and join the evacuation efforts. Honored representatives, Lisa began, I bring you the formal response of the Terran Federation to the current crisis. She activated the holographic display, which showed a real-time image of Earth's orbital space. The assembled representatives gasped as they saw hundreds of human warships in formation, their hulls bristling with weapon systems that most galactic species had never seen before. The Terran Federation hereby declares its intention to seek out and destroy the Devourer threat at its source, Lisa announced. Our military forces are already deploying to the Outer Rim with the goal of complete elimination of hostile forces. Ambassador Vexara of the Arachnid Collective stood up abruptly. Ambassador Garcia, this is madness. You cannot simply declare war on a force of nature. With respect, Ambassador Vexara, we are not declaring war, Lisa replied calmly. We are declaring extermination. The Devourers have chosen to threaten peaceful worlds. They have made themselves our enemy. We intend to ensure they never threaten anyone again. Fleet Admiral Corex activated his own display, showing tactical analyses of Devourer capabilities. Ambassador, look at these projections. A single Devourer ship masses more than your entire space fleet. They have consumed the resources of hundreds of worlds. How can you possibly hope to match their firepower? Lisa smiled, and several representatives noted that the expression seemed predatory in a way they had never seen before. Admiral, you're thinking about this the wrong way? You see massive ships and assume they represent strength? We see massive targets that will be difficult for the enemy to maneuver quickly. But their numbers, protested Dr. Kaish of the Scientific Consortium. Intelligence reports suggest millions of Devourer entities. Numbers can be deceiving, Lisa said, changing her display to show human military doctrine. On Earth, we learned long ago that superior tactics and technology can overcome numerical disadvantages. We also learned that predators become vulnerable when they encounter prey that fights back effectively. Ambassador Veltar's crystalline form shimmered with agitation. Ambassador, even if you somehow managed to damage a few of their ships, they would simply adapt and overwhelm you. They have consumed entire star systems. That consumption gives us an advantage, Lisa explained. They've grown fat and complacent. They've never faced an enemy that studies their weaknesses, that adapts faster than they do, that refuses to give up even when facing impossible odds. Chancellor Morden leaned forward in his seat. Ambassador Garcia, what you propose has never been attempted in galactic history. The risk of failure is enormous. Chancellor, the risk of doing nothing is certain failure, Lisa replied. Every species in this chamber will eventually be consumed if the Devourers are allowed to continue their harvest. At least our way offers hope. She paused and looked around the chamber. But I want to make something clear to this assembly. Earth is not asking for your approval or your assistance. We are informing you of our actions as a courtesy. Whether you choose to evacuate, hide, or assist is entirely your decision. The silence that followed was broken by an unexpected voice. Captain Zethara, Amanda Blake's friend from Research Station Omega 7, had requested permission to address the Council as a civilian observer. I have worked alongside humans for 3 years, Zethara said, her multiple limbs moving in complex patterns that indicated deep thought. They are unlike any species I have encountered. They do not think like prey animals. They think like hunters, even when they are being hunted. She turned to address Lisa directly. Ambassador, if your people truly intend to hunt the Devourers, they will need accurate intelligence about enemy movements and capabilities. Lisa nodded respectfully. Any information would be appreciated, Captain. Then you should know that the Arachnid Collective has deep space monitoring stations throughout the Outer Rim, Zethara continued. If your forces require real-time intelligence on Devourer fleet movements, we could provide that support. The chamber erupted in surprised chittering and whispered conversations. For the first time, one of the established species was offering to assist humanity's war effort rather than simply evacuating. Ambassador Yelineth of the Peaceful Assembly stood up slowly. If the Arachnids are willing to provide intelligence, Support? Perhaps the peaceful assembly could offer our stealth technology to help human ships approach undetected. One by one, other representatives began to speak up. The Venthri offered their defensive shield technology. The Silicate Collective volunteered their crystal-based computing systems for tactical analysis. Even the cautious hegemony suggested they could PR. Commander Jake Mitchell floated in the command chair of the reconnaissance ship Hunter's Edge as it drifted silently through the debris field that had once been the Kepler 186 system. 3 weeks had passed since the Galactic Council meeting, and the first human ships had finally reached the outer rim to gather intelligence on the Devourer forces. What they found exceeded their worst expectations. Visual confirmation on the fourth planet's remains, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim from the sensor station. Nothing left but metallic fragments and trace organic compounds. They consumed everything down to the atmosphere. Jake studied the tactical display showing the complete destruction of what had been a thriving colony world with 12 million inhabitants. The Devourers had been thorough in their harvest, leaving behind only the heavy metals they apparently could not process. Even the planet's moon had been stripped of its mineral content. "Any sign of Devourer ships in the area?" Jake asked. "Negative." "On active contacts," replied Chief Petty Officer Mike Torres from the navigation console. "But I'm picking up biological residue consistent with their ship hulls." "They were definitely here recently?" The Hunter's Edge was one of 12 human ships conducting reconnaissance missions throughout the affected systems. Each vessel had been heavily modified with arachnid stealth technology and Venthri defensive shields, allowing them to operate undetected in Devourer-controlled space. The information they gathered would be crucial for planning the main assault. Jake activated the quantum communication system to report their findings to the command fleet. Admiral Helen Ross appeared on the main screen, her expression grim as she received updates from multiple reconnaissance teams simultaneously. "Commander Mitchell, what's your assessment of enemy capabilities based on direct observation?" Admiral Ross asked. "Ma'am, these things are even worse than the historical record suggested," Jake replied. "They don't just consume organic matter. They're processing metals, water, atmospheric gases, everything. A Devourer ship grows larger with each system it harvests." The Admiral nodded grimly. "We're getting similar reports from all recon teams. Intelligence suggests the main Devourer fleet is currently operating in the Gliese 667 system, approximately 40 light-years from your position." "Orders, ma'am." "Proceed to observation point Delta 7 and establish a monitoring station. We need real-time intelligence on their movement patterns before we commit the main fleet." Jake acknowledged the orders and signaled his crew to prepare for the next jump. As the Hunter's Edge engaged its faster-than-light drive, he reflected on how much had changed since humanity decided to fight rather than flee. The past 3 weeks had seen the largest military mobilization in human history, with ships and personnel being pulled from every corner of Earth's sphere of influence back. In Earth orbit, the main battle fleet was nearing completion of its preparation phase. Admiral Ross stood on the bridge of the flagship Defiance, watching as the final supply ships docked with the massive warships that would carry humanity's response to the Devourer threat. The fleet numbered over 300 vessels, ranging from heavily armed dreadnoughts to fast attack craft loaded with experimental weapons. Dr. Carl Peterson materialized on the bridge's holographic communication system, calling in from the biological warfare laboratory on Luna. "Admiral, I have an update on Project Nemesis." "Go ahead, Doctor," Admiral Ross replied, studying the tactical projections on her command display. "We've successfully created a targeted pathogen based on the Devourer tissue samples from the outer rim," Dr. Peterson explained. "The organism attacks their cellular regeneration system specifically. In laboratory tests, it caused complete system failure within 72 hours. Deployment method? We've loaded the pathogen into specially modified torpedo warheads. The biological agent will spread through a Devourer ship's organic hull systems on contact. Each torpedo can theoretically disable vessels up to 5 kilometers in length." Admiral Ross nodded with satisfaction. "How many torpedoes do we have ready?" Initial production run yielded 2,000 units, Dr. Peterson reported. We're continuing production, but that should be sufficient for the first wave attack. The Admiral turned to Captain Susan Wright, who commanded the experimental stealth. Destroyer Retribution. Captain, your ship will be deploying the biological weapons during the initial assault phase. Are your crews ready? Captain Wright, a veteran of the Mars colonial wars, smiled grimly. Admiral, my people have been training with these new weapons for 2 weeks. We know exactly how to deliver them where they'll do the most damage. As the human fleet made final preparations, the Devourer forces continued their methodical advance through the Outer Rim systems. In the Gliese 667 system, massive biological ships the size of small cities fed on the remains of 3 civilized worlds. The creatures that controlled these vessels had no concept of resistance or organized retaliation. For millions of years, they had encountered only fleeing prey and defensive positions that eventually collapsed under sustained assault. The largest Devourer ship, a grotesque fusion of organic tissue and absorbed technology, served as the command center for the entire swarm. Within its living corridors, the Devourer consciousness processed information from thousands of smaller vessels as they systematically stripped every useful resource from the system. The Devourers communicated through biological impulses that traveled along their ship networks, creating a hive mind that coordinated their activities across vast distances. They had detected the small reconnaissance ships monitoring their activities, but classified them as harmless scavengers, seeking to feed on the remains of consumed worlds. This assessment was about to prove catastrophically wrong. Commander Jake Mitchell's reconnaissance team had established a hidden observation post in an asteroid field on the edge of the Gliese 667 system, using arachnid stealth technology to mask their presence. For 3 days, they had watched the Devourer fleet methodically consume everything in the system, while transmitting detailed intelligence back to the human command fleet. Admiral, we have movement, Jake reported during his scheduled communication. Window, the main Devourer fleet is preparing to depart the system. Based on their trajectory, they're heading for the Kepler 452 colonies. Admiral Ross received the report while reviewing final attack plans with her senior staff. The Kepler 452 system contained 2 inhabited worlds with a combined population of over 800 million beings. If the Devourers reached those worlds, the death toll would be unimaginable. Time to intercept? Admiral Ross asked. Based on their current speed, we can intercept them in the empty space between systems, replied Captain Tony Rodriguez, the fleet's tactical coordinator. It would give us the advantage of choosing the battlefield. Fleet status? All ships report ready for immediate departure, Captain Rodriguez confirmed. The Arachnid Intelligence Network is providing real-time updates on Devourer positions, and the Venthari defensive systems are fully integrated with our ships. Admiral Ross looked around at her senior officers, seeing determination mixed with nervousness in their faces. None of them had ever faced an enemy like the Devourers, but all of them understood what failure would mean for billions of innocent lives. Signal all ships to prepare for departure, Admiral Ross ordered. We intercept the Devourer fleet in 18 hours. As the human battle fleet began its journey toward the Outer Rim, word of the impending confrontation spread throughout cooperative space. On dozens of worlds, beings who had spent weeks preparing evacuation plans instead found themselves watching news broadcasts and tracking the progress of the human ships. Captain Zethara monitored the fleet's progress from research Station Omega 7, where Dr. Amanda Blake and her colleagues had volunteered to serve as a forward communication relay. The station's location in the Kepler 442 system put it directly in the path of the advancing Devourer forces, making it an ideal observation post for the coming battle. Amanda, are you certain you want to remain here? Zethara asked as they watched the tactical displays showing both fleets converging on their intercept point. The station could evacuate to a safer location. Amanda Blake studied the projected battle zone on the main display, her expression thoughtful. Captain, humanity is risking everything to protect worlds they've never even visited. The least we can do is provide them with accurate intelligence when they need it most. Kevin Murphy, who had been coordinating with the human fleet's communication network, looked up from his workstation. Besides, if the human fleet fails, nowhere in the galaxy will be safe anyway. We might as well see how this plays out. Ryan Carter continued monitoring deep space transmissions, tracking the electronic signatures of both fleets as they approached each other. I'm picking up increased communication traffic from the Devourer ships. They seem to be coordinating for something big, or reacting to something unexpected, Amanda suggested. They've probably never encountered organized resistance before. As the two fleets moved inexorably toward their collision point, the galaxy held its breath. For the first time in recorded history, someone was choosing to hunt the hunters. The outcome of the coming battle would determine whether the age of hiding and running was finally over, or whether the Devourers would add humanity to their long list of consumed CI. The space between the Gliese 667 and Kepler 452 systems had never witnessed anything like the confrontation that was about to unfold. Admiral Helen Ross stood on the bridge of the Defiance as her fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the calculated intercept point. 300 human warships spread out in attack formation, their hulls gleaming with weapon systems that had never been tested against an enemy like the Devourers. "Fleet deployment complete," reported Captain Tony Rodriguez from his tactical station. "All ships report ready for combat operations." Admiral Ross studied the holographic display showing the approaching Devourer swarm. The enemy fleet was massive, beyond comprehension, with individual ships that dwarfed entire human battle groups. The largest vessels stretched over 10 kilometers in length, their organic hulls pulsing with absorbed nutrients from consumed worlds. "Enemy contact in 15 minutes, announced Lieutenant Danny Foster from the sensor array. Devourer fleet consists of approximately 1,200 vessels of various sizes. Mass ratio is roughly 50 to 1 in their favor. The Admiral activated the fleet-wide communication system to address her crews before the battle began. "All ships, this is Admiral Ross. Today we face an enemy that has terrorized the galaxy for millions of years. They believe we are just another species to be consumed and forgotten. They are about to learn why Earth breeds survivors." On the bridge of the stealth destroyer Retribution, Captain Susan Wright prepared her ship for the opening strike. Her vessel carried the first wave of biological torpedoes designed to cripple the Devourer fleet from within. The Retribution had been modified with arachnid stealth systems that would allow it to penetrate deep into enemy formation before being detected. "Stealth systems at maximum efficiency," reported her executive officer, Commander Lisa Park. "We should be able to reach the target zone undetected." Captain Wright nodded as she watched the tactical display. "Remember, our job is to deliver the biological weapons to their command ships. Once those torpedoes hit their targets, the pathogen should spread through their entire network." The Devourer fleet advanced in their typical formation, with the largest ships at the center surrounded by smaller vessels in concentric circles. They had used this same approach for countless millennia, relying on their superior mass and numbers to overwhelm any resistance. The concept that prey might actually hunt them was so foreign that their tactical systems had no protocols for dealing with it. As the two fleets closed to engagement range, the Devourers began their standard consumption sequence. Bioelectric discharges lanced out from their ships, designed to disable enemy vessels so they could be boarded and absorbed. These weapons had never failed to stop fleeing prey ships in the past. The human fleet's response shocked the Devourer collective consciousness. Instead of being disabled by the bioelectric attacks, the human ships absorbed the energy using Venthry shield technology and redirected it into their own weapon systems. The predators had just fed their prey. "All ships, weapons free, Admiral," Ross commanded. "Show them what Deathworlders do to things that threaten our people." The space between the fleets erupted in brilliant flashes as 300 human warships opened fire simultaneously. Nuclear torpedoes, plasma cannons, kinetic projectiles, and exotic energy weapons created a wall of destruction that no enemy had ever survived. The Devourers, accustomed to facing scattered defensive positions, found themselves under coordinated assault from every direction. Captain Tony Rodriguez piloted his heavy cruiser Vengeance into close combat with a Devourer vessel 3 times his ship's size. Instead of maintaining safe distance like prey species typically did, he ordered ramming speed and drove his ship directly into the enemy's organic hull. The impact tore through bio-armor that had resisted conventional weapons for millions of years. Hull breach successful, Rodriguez reported over the combat network. Boarding teams away. Human Marines in powered armor poured through the breach into the Devourer ship's living corridors. Where other species had tried to fight defensively, the humans brought the battle directly to the enemy. Plasma rifles, explosive charges, and biological weapons turned the organic passages into charnel houses. Lieutenant Danny Foster led his boarding team deeper into the Devourer vessel, following intelligence maps provided by Dr. Peterson's research team. They fought through writhing corridors that actively tried to heal around them, using flamethrowers to prevent the ship from sealing their path. "Target the neural clusters," Foster shouted to his team as they encountered the ship's primitive nervous system. "If we can disrupt their coordination, the whole vessel goes down." Meanwhile, Captain Susan Wright's stealth mission reached its critical phase. The Retribution had penetrated to the center of the Devourer formation undetected, positioning itself within striking distance of their largest command vessel. The massive bioship pulsed with the collective intelligence that coordinated the entire swarm. "Biological torpedoes armed and ready," Commander Lisa Park reported. "Target locked on the command ship's central nervous cluster. Fire all tubes." Captain Wright ordered. 20 biological torpedoes streaked through space toward the Devourer command ship, their specially designed warheads carrying Dr. Peterson's engineered pathogen. The weapons penetrated the organic hull and released their deadly cargo into the ship's circulatory system. The effect was immediate and devastating. The pathogen attacked the Devourer's cellular structure at the molecular level, causing system-wide organ failure throughout the massive vessel. But more importantly, the bioship's role as a communication hub meant the pathogen spread through neural links to dozens of other vessels in the fleet. "Biological attack successful," Captain Wright reported. "Multiple enemy vessels showing signs of system failure." The tide of battle had turned, but the Devourers were far from defeated. The smaller vessels, less dependent on the central command network, continued their attacks with desperate fury. They began ramming human ships directly, using their superior mass to inflict damage even as they died. Commander Jake Mitchell, whose reconnaissance had made this battle possible, found his ship Hunter's Edge locked in combat with a medium-sized Devourer vessel. The enemy ship latched onto his hull with organic tendrils, trying to breach the human ship's armor and consume its crew. "Emergency hull breach in Section 7, reported Lieutenant Sarah Kim. "They're trying to board us." "Not today," Mitchell replied grimly. He activated the ship's self-destruct sequence and ejected the crew in escape pods. The resulting explosion vaporized both ships, but it took the Devourer vessel with it. Similar acts of sacrifice occurred throughout the battle zone as human crews chose mutual destruction over being consumed. The Devourers, who had always relied on preserving prey for harvesting, found themselves facing an enemy that preferred death to defeat. Dr. Amanda Blake watched the battle unfold from Research Station Omega 7, coordinating intelligence reports and providing tactical updates to the human fleet. The station's sensors showed the incredible scope of the engagement, with explosions visible across several light minutes of space. "The biological weapon is spreading faster than projected," Amanda reported to Admiral Ross. "Devourer fleet cohesion is breaking down as their command vessels fail." Captain Zethara, monitoring arachnid sensor networks throughout the region, added her own assessment. "The Devourers are attempting to retreat, but their navigation systems are failing. Many ships are dead in space." The final phase of the battle lasted another 6 hours as human forces systematically hunted down the remaining Devourer vessels. Ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millions of years found themselves being stalked and destroyed by an enemy that refused to give up. The predators had become prey. When the last Devourer ship was confirmed destroyed, Admiral Ross surveyed the aftermath of humanity's first major engagement with the galactic nightmare. Her fleet had taken heavy casualties, but they had achieved something that no species in recorded history had ever accomplished. "All ships, this is Admiral Ross," she announced to the surviving vessels. "The Devourer fleet has been completely eliminated. The threat to the Kepler 452 colonies has been neutralized." The cheers that erupted across the human fleet were picked up by monitoring stations throughout cooperative space. For the first time in galactic history, someone had not just survived an encounter with the Devourers, but had hunted them to extinction. Ambassador Lisa Garcia received the battle report while still on Centralis, surrounded by alien representatives who had spent the day watching long-range sensor feeds of the engagement. The shocked silence in the council chambers was broken only by the soft chittering of amazement from dozens of species. "The Devourers are gone," Lisa announced simply, "all of them. The threat has been permanently eliminated." Chancellor Morden looked around at his fellow representatives, all of whom were struggling to process what they had witnessed. "Ambassador Garcia, in 3,000 years of recorded history, no species has ever achieved such a victory." "That's because no species ever tried," Lisa replied. "You saw them as unstoppable forces of nature. We saw them as problems to be solved." Dr. Amanda Blake's final report from Omega 7 summarized the broader implications of the battle. "The galaxy has learned something important today. There are no